We'll now go to Mr. Diotte for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks to both witnesses. It's a really fascinating topic. I wanted to talk to Dr. Polzin Holman a bit. First of all, thanks for your good work. I'm very familiar with your organization, being a fellow Edmontonian, and you've got a great reputation. I wanted to kind of bring this home to talk about a real-world story. I noticed that on your website you talk about the case of Michelle, a mother whose story reminds us of why Little Warriors was created. Can you tell us a bit about Michelle's story and the story she shared about her daughter and how her daughter fell victim?
Thank you, Mr. Diotte. I appreciate your kind words. I certainly can say a little bit more about the child and family that were impacted. The child was treated at Little Warriors in our intensive episodic treatment center, and the reason that she came to us is that there was an online predator, and the parents of the child, who at the time was somewhere around 12 years of age. The parents were very much involved in this child's life, very much involved in setting controls and checking and supporting their child's digital literacy. The issue actually came when the child was at school and was able to access social media platforms where the offender took advantage of safety that wasn't in place and continued to reach out, came to Edmonton not once but twice and met her at her school, and at that point had taken her across the border in the United States and had significantly sexually assaulted and raped her. So, you know, this unfortunately is a very significant example of what can happen and what the harms are. But unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident. We've had numerous other situations of boys and girls under the age of 18 who have had very similar situations and have been assaulted as a result and have been manipulated in various ways. So it is a problem that definitely needs to be addressed, and we can't settle for what currently is in place.
Thanks for that. And you had mentioned sexual offenders being released with mere warnings. Can you talk a bit about that and how often that occurs?
Well, unfortunately, we have situations, Mr. Diotte, you would be also familiar with the case. There was an offender who was found who was reported at a daycare just outside of Edmonton and had access to children under the age of 5 at a preschool or a daycare setting. And he was awaiting trial and actually fled the country. And since that time, we are aware that there have been other children who, again, ages 4, 5, 6 years old, who unfortunately have experienced the abuse that he put upon them in the daycare. We've had numerous situations where children and teens who are awaiting treatment and can't get into treatment have their offenders released because there's not enough information or not enough sentencing, or that they've served a short period of time and are released and have reoffended again.
So what would you like to see done in that regard? What are some immediate steps that could be taken there?
Well, it's not my area of expertise to say, but certainly I think we need to be looking at our sentencing and perhaps having minimum and mandatory minimums, as well as looking at the process in which and the speed to which we support vulnerable children and youth and their families to report sexual abuse.
And that you would not be a fan of the recent Supreme Court decision against mandatory minimums for child pornography.
I know it's a complex issue, and I understand some of the rationale behind that, but from the perspective of supporting vulnerable children and youth, my position is always to ensure that our focus is on supporting children and youth, and ensuring that they're safe, and that offenders should be serving their sentences and be treated with very significant penalties for their actions.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm going to give the